Thanks for listening to the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast, where each week we talk about a free piece or two of technology that you can use in your classroom. I'm your host, Shanna Martin. I'm a middle school teacher, technology and instructional coach from my district.
And I'm her husband and producer, Fuzz Martin, and Obi, the one who edits this podcast.
That's actually pretty cute.
Yeah, thank you.
So we're back from our little break.
We are back.
From spring break.
Yeah, we had a really good spring break. It was a lot of fun.
We did.
I was not expecting it to be as fun as it was because I'd never been to Disney before. And it was great.
Yeah, it was fun. We had a good time.
A lot of fun.
We had been planning the trip for 3 years. So
yeah, we told the girls in Christmas of 2019.
We finally made it there.
We finally went there. Yep.
So, yeah. And then we came back to snow. So,
bum, 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 bum.
Yeah, we had 3 inches of snow on the ground this morning?
Yeah. Another 4 inches coming today as this podcast is published.
Yay. We love snow.
We do.
Not in April, though.
Not at all.
Oh, goodness. So this week, after a little spring break adventure, and we did happen to go to Hollywood Studios, and we did go on all the Star Wars stuff because we're kind of nerds like that.
Yeah, we like that
We
stuff.
like Star Wars stuff. So I brought back to my classroom a bantha for anybody who is a Star Wars nerd and embraces all of the furry creatures. And I put a bantha in my classroom. I brought it back just for my classroom. And what I, lo and behold, found out when I returned it home is that it makes noise. And I turned it on in my classroom for my students. And it makes weird creaturey growls and whatnot. And the class is like, what is that? And they thought it was like a furry mop I was carrying around just for 8th grade entertainment because it's a Friday. And in 8th grade, I like to see what my students will react to. Well, I didn't realize I left it on. And so then my next class came in and there was these weird creature noises coming from the back of my classroom. And one of my students actually identified it because also somebody who embraces Star Wars goes, it's a bantha. And the other kid, I was like, what was going on? I was trying to figure out what the noises were coming from. He was a little freaked out. So this week, my podcast is inspired by my students because then we started talking about Star Wars and who knows Star Wars things, who's seen the movies, who has read the books, and who knows absolutely nothing about Star Wars. And officially, a month from today, it is...
May the 4th be with you.
May the 4th. So you have a whole month if you want to put Star Wars things in your lesson plan for May the 4th.
Yes.
I thought I'd share some ideas.
Nice.
So free Star Wars awesomeness is where we are at this week on the podcast. And if you're not a Star Wars fan, I understand. You do not have to be to enjoy some of these fun sites that we are going to talk about. So here we go.
All right.
Episode 117, Star Wars excitement. So the first site we're going to talk about is called Star Wars Kids. It is StarWarsKids.com. And it is created by Disney.
Nice.
And since, Disney has taken over and it's like a Lucasfilm website. And so Star Wars Kids starts with there's little videos and you're more familiar with some of the cartoon Star Wars stuff than I am. But they have Star Wars A to Z. They introduce you to all the characters and all the things. They have wise wisdom words and quotes from Star Wars characters. Then they have the different videos. Anyway, this is not going to be super educational. However, the way Star Wars is set up, you can build it into any one of your classes. So I know that I have several teachers who build Star Wars stuff into their math assignments because you can do trajectory and flying light speed and you can do physics with the Millennium Falcon and there's all kinds of stuff. But as you scroll through, there's also activities and there's games and there's stories that you can listen to or show your students. And the bottom, there's also activities. So they have an ID you can make. They have different wanted posters students can design. And then they also have a chopper paper craft, which is kind of cool, where you can actually print these off for those of you that are allowed to print things and in color. You're able to print in color. But you can build your own little paper robot, which is kind of cool. So you can build him in class and make him in 3D,
Sure.
which also you can build into like a measuring activity. You can build it into a robot activity. You can then write a story about him. Like you can build these things into your natural lesson plans and add a little Star Wars information to it, which is kind of fun. So there's just a lot of different, these are for like, I would say elementary, lower middle school students that would be engaged in these activities. And, or if you're like a Star Wars nerd and enjoy them too, because there's lots of fun things to play around with. So StarWarsKids.com, just a lot of different fun activities and video clips that you could use. Like if you play the wise words, you can pull a quote and have students like rewrite a word, like rewrite one of their sets of wise words, or how would that inspire a journal entry?
They also, I mean, they do have some videos geared for kids, like challenging yourself, things on family, things on practicing healthy habits. They've got videos on meditation and active play and how to get outside and actually get some physical activity. So it's not just fun and games. They do have some actual educational and enlightening content on the site, but also you can learn about the Banthas and the Wampas and the Ezra Bridgers and etc.
And all kinds of stuff. And it's just super engaging. So again, even if you're not like huge into Star Wars, there's a lot of just different cool things that students can engage in. And you can build pretty easily into your classroom for a quick mini lesson. I'm not talking about spending hours and hours on this, but a fun way to tie Star Wars in on May 4th.
You're looking for a brain break, you know, like
absolutely.
They've got like how to draw Zine Marala, like
that you can pronounce all these names.
And spent a long time, my friend, a long time in a county far, far away. But it'll, you know, teach the kids how to draw things and how, you know, how to draw Boba Fett. There's one that more people would know.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's not the most educational, but there are educational components.
Yes. And it's kind of fun and you could build things in.
I'd put it on the level of like a PBS Kids kind of thing.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. Yep. Speaking of PBS Kids.
Oh yeah.
We're going to talk about PBS.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So the second site we're going to talk about is a really long URL. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's pbs.org.
Okay.
And then it's one of their teacher blogs because they have different like guest teachers blog within their site. So we will link this PBS site into smartwi.com.
Yeah, and smartwi.com. So if you're on Apple or Spotify, just click description or show more on Spotify and the link will be in there.
Yeah. So it's a pbs.org site. And then it talks about May the 4th be with you. It's from a couple years ago.
Yep.
Real world connections in the classroom and beyond. And what I love about this is that it connects, so it's a blog that's been written by a teacher.
Yep.
Catherine Mulroney. What's cool about it is, so music, it talks about John Williams, the conductor and the writer of all of the Star Wars music. And then
composer,
composer. Thank you. And then how the different scores are inspired and how you can tie that into music and mixing music together. It talks about the visual arts and the different feats of these artists that have created these galactic themes and backgrounds and like what that takes. It talks about English class, like how they have created their own vocabulary, and it goes through science and math and social studies, and then how it, like Star Wars bridges divides of different people and different creatures. And so it really connects Star Wars to kind of like life and actual things going on, which is kind of neat because a lot of people like Star Wars, like science fiction.
Yeah.
Out of my like comfort zone, or I'm not interested in that, but it's a way of connecting these characters and this art that form that has been created. And then you can tie it back into your classroom, which I think is really interesting.
I agree.
So that is just a little pbs.org blog about real world connections and how to connect Star Wars to real life.
Wonderful.
And the third site, because I know I like to talk about 1 or 2 or 12, but we're just doing 3 today, is code.org, because we love a good coding site. code.org/Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I use in my classroom actually quite a bit with my students. And you can code in either block or JavaScript, and you drive BB-8 and R2-D2 around on little missions. And because it's a code.org,
yeah,
it sets it up where like each level builds on itself. So you learn like a basic skill and then it adds on it. And each different coding activity builds on the next one. And blocks, they say around 6 to age 11 or so. And then JavaScript 11 and up. That's what I use with my middle schoolers. And what's cool is there's all of these different, I think there's 10 or 12 different levels within the one game. And at the end, they get a little certificate that they finished it. But what is fun is there are Star Wars creators that are interviewed that kind of explain how this works.
Mm-hmm.
And then they teach you, and then they have like little hints and they walk you through the whole process. And you've got little BB-8 and R2-D2 driving around your screen while you're learning to code them, and they don't always listen to you. So it's really a fun way of doing Star Wars stuff, but also then learning your coding skills as well.
That's fun. I like that a couple things. If you're in a school or in an area that doesn't have internet, or there might be some internet deserts, we'll say, you can download a version so that students have that. I also really thought it was cool that the block coding version says ages 6 to 106.
Yes. Because anybody can learn to code.
Yes, unless you're 5 and under.
Which is not true.
That's not true.
You could even learn at age 5.
I'm certain that our 6-year-old, when she was 5,
was
we could
coding.
have given her this and she would have ran with it.
Yes. So that's another way to build a little Star Wars and some coding into your classroom. I know it's not our official like one site, very focused topic, but I had to talk about Star Wars, and my students were really fun today when we were talking about stuff. And I thought, well, that way any teacher that wants to have some Star Wars resources for May 4th, you got a whole month to play around with these before May 4th happens, which is kind of exciting. A little Star Wars, a little excitement.
A little Star Wars in your life.
So that'll wrap it up for episode 117.
117.
Thanks for tuning in. This has been the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast. If you ever have any questions, you can find me on Twitter @SmartNWI. And if you want to get more information on the links to the technology discussed in this episode, you can visit smartnwi.com. If you'd like to support the show, please consider buying me a coffee or two. Visit buymeacoffee.com/smartnwi or visit smartnwi.com and click on the cute little purple coffee cup. Your donations help keep this show going. New episodes each week. Thanks for listening. Go educate and innovate.
The ideas and opinions expressed on this podcast and the Smart NWI website are those of the author, Shanna Martin, and not of her employer. Prior to using any of the technologies discussed on this podcast, please consult with your employer regulations. This podcast offers no guarantee that these tools will work for you as described, but we sure hope they do.